Hello.
Hi. Thank you so much, Angelica, for joining our Buddhability launch event.
Yes, thank you for having me. This is really exciting.
Yes, so we'll get started. And hi, everyone. Welcome to our Buddhability launch event with, of course, the amazing Angelica Ross, who some of you may recognize from Pose, but also she makes major moves in the tech world with trans tech, which really empowers trans people and gender nonconforming people to have work experience. And it's amazing, and a host of many other things. And so Buddhability is really a platform that explains Buddhism in an accessible, easy to understand way. And Angelica, welcome. I know you've been practicing for a while, so can you share a little bit about what drew you to Buddhism and how you got started?
Yes, I actually celebrated my 10th Buddha birthday
Amazing.
this year. So it has been 10 years since I have
Wow.
really taken the practice seriously and got my own Gohanzen, or my Butsudan back there that has my Gohanzen inside. So I've been chanting for 10 years, and I grew up in the church, in Pentecostal church, and just for a very long time uh, felt kind of spiritually homeless, in the sense where just the spiritual home I grew up in didn't fit. It didn't feel like it had the right context for who I was, and the spirit that I was, the unique mission that I had. And so it wasn't until 2010, when I moved to Los Angeles. I really moved to Los Angeles from Chicago because I wanted to finally give it a go at being an actor, and finally just say, you know what, I'm done doing the drag shows and the drag bars and lip singing, and like really you lip singing and mouthing someone else's words when I had a voice. I knew that I had a voice that was strong enough and that needed to be heard, and I just didn't know how yet. So when I moved to Los Angeles, it was kind of uh, my attempt at starting that path. And that is when I was introduced. I mean, but going to Los Angeles, I mean, it's a huge move for most people. It's very stressful. It's the big LA. So I was met with a lot of challenges right away. I was extremely depressed. I was fresh out of a breakup. And so my roommate that I found on Craigslist ended up being a Nichiren Buddhist. And so him and the guy that shakubuku'd him ended up, like, they would always come to the house and they would invite me to chant with them. And at first I was just so, I think, worn by just the journey. I was depressed. I was embarrassed that I was at what I considered to be my rock bottom. And so when they took me to the Friendship Center in Los Angeles for the first time, and when I went there, I mean, from day one of hearing all of these people chanting Nam-myoho-renge-kyo, I felt like that movie Avatar, where they're all standing around the tree.
Oh,
And
yeah.
like, I felt like I walked into this moment, because I was just like, wow. And I felt the power immediately, and I didn't immediately even know what Nam-myoho-renge, any of that meant. I just knew that I felt the synergy of courage, a synergy of like people who were at various levels of their life. When you go to the Friendship Center, you just see people from all walks of life who are really just focused on their own human revolution and on their own work. And that was something that I could kind of vibrate with.
That's amazing. You share about Nam-myoho-renge-kyo, and I know a lot of people joining may not really know what that means and what Buddhism means. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I mean, very basics. I mean, there's Buddhism is reason.
Hmm.
So, we always say Buddhism is reason. And that's one thing that I think it's just such an overview. And what I love about Buddhism is that it's not confining. It's not something that has these very specific rules about do this, don't do
Right.
this, walk this way, talk this way, don't do this. You know, we have as an organization that wants to uphold like this teaching that's very old and that's been around for a very long time, and that wants to hold that all intact. Like there's that part. But when it comes to practicing and getting to know Buddhism, it is something that is as natural as nature. And so you find various ways to sort of really explain life, and explain your position in life. Meaning, like, so many people are asking, like, what is my purpose in life? Or, you know, just are confused in this day and age with, because of all the things and all the distractions of like, what am I here for? And like Buddhism makes you look in the mirror and take a really good, clear look in the mirror to be able to see exactly who you are, to see your value and your beauty and your talents, and also see clearly what's for you and what's not for you. So Buddhism for me is like this magic mirror that I carry around that's able to help guide me throughout my life and show me that actually I don't need to look at someone else's Instagram, or I don't need to look to someone else for the answers or for what I should be doing. The answers are when I look myself directly in the mirror. And, you know, right now we call this the Gohanzen, the thing that we chant to that's in there. It's a scroll that's in there. And, you know, we look at it like it's a mirror. And so for me, Buddhism is a practice. It's not something that, it's really not, you know, I'm learning that it's not this label that to wear, like, oh, I'm, even though, yes, I'm a Bodhisattva, I'm a Buddhist, all these things. But more than that, what's more important about that is the practice, is what your actual day-to-day practice is, and how you are upholding and are an example of the highest vibrational frequency that you can reach, you know, and constantly doing so that you bring more peace into your life. And the more you focus on bringing peace into your life, the more you start to affect the environment around you. It's not the other way around. You can't change the environment and then, okay, if I change my job, if I change my location, if I change any of these outside things about me, then I'll finally be at peace. No, 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 no. We learn how to generate peace first within ourselves, within our perspective, getting a clarity about who we are and our value and our power in this world, and then putting it into action.
That is the most amazing explanation I've heard of Buddhism, I think, ever. That's, yeah, absolutely. And I think if you could share like an experience of how you saw that in your life, you know, this amazing power.
Yeah, you know, we always say never give up, like never give up. And, you know, we really never give up really, I think, points to this element of what some people call grit, of being able to have that thing that, you know, talent is one thing. And it's great that people can sing and can act. And I act and I do singing, I do all these different things. But what's more important than any individual talent is the never give up spirit. Because in order to be great at something, you don't start out great at something. You just don't. Even the people like that we consider to be geniuses, when we look at certain books like Outliers from Malcolm Gladwell, we learn that genius is really broken down into someone who's willing to spend an obscene amount of time working at their craft, pouring hours in after hours into their craft. After what they call 10,000 hours, that's when you supposedly reach genius. So in thinking about that and thinking about the time someone puts into playing piano, into doing all these different things, I have with this practice put in daimoku, what we call daimoku, or chanting Nam-myoho-renge-kyo. The more time that I spend chanting in front of, you know, my Gohanzen, the more I'm walking out into the world with this like energy that's like gas in the tank. I can go further, I can go longer, the more that I kind of put that effort into myself. And so you need that kind of energy, especially when being an actor, like doing auditions and doing things like that, because you get told no so many times. And you have to be able to never give up and to also know what you have walking in the door. Regardless of what the audition is, what people are looking for, it's about being able to carry the essence of who you are and have that intact no matter what. And so when I went on the journey of starting to audition for Pose, which was one of the main shows that people know me from as Candy Ferocity on Pose, I had ignored the audition for a while and I pushed it off to other people. I didn't really see myself on the show. I saw that they were auditioning for 2 roles. Neither one of the roles I thought were for me. But then my agents were like, listen, you need to audition for this show. You're going to send in a tape. And so I was like, okay, fine. I was like, I need to find an acting coach. Called all my friends to find an acting coach. Finally found this acting coach. She's best in the, she's one of the big, best acting coaches in the business. But I couldn't afford it. But I was like, you know what? Okay, fine. I'm just going to like make this investment and pay for this acting coach session, So we go to the session. And during the session, we did not spend a single moment going over the lines. I told her that as an actor, I see acting as a moment to reveal the human condition, and to get people to have more understanding for various type of people living at various levels of life. And I told her, I said, I really bring my Buddhist practice to everything I do. And she says, wait a minute, what do you mean Buddhist practice? She goes, what type of Buddhism? And I was like, Nichiren Buddhism. I chant Nam-myoho-renge-kyo. She was like, oh, really? She was like, I'm actually a women's division leader. And I'm like, what? Like, and it was totally random. Wow. And so it was this moment for me where I was like, uh-oh, wait a minute, something's working here. My chanting, my daimoku is paying off. What's going on? So she said, listen, all we're going to do is work with you on visualizing what the purpose, what your journey is in playing. Who was going to be the character Blanca, the main character on Pose, who finds out in the beginning of the series that she has an HIV diagnosis and then goes on to start her own house. And so I thought that was going to be my thing. She was like, you're going to get a lot of people to understand people with HIV. This show is going to be big and all this stuff or what have you. So I go do the audition and I get a call back. They now want to, I have to negotiate what my deal is going to look like. Should I get the role? So I see the money on the table. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so excited. And so I negotiate the deal. They fly me to New York. I prepare for this audition. I'm as prepared as I think I can be. I go to the audition and I think I kind of fumbled the audition a little bit. One of the things that happened is that I just got I thought about Carrie Bradshaw in Sex and the City wearing high heel shoes walking in New York. So that's what I was doing. I was wearing these stiletto shoes walking to my audition. Wow. I get to the audition, and by the time I get to the room and to the chair to sit down, I get a Charlie horse in my leg. And I'm like, oh, and I just, all of a sudden I have this Charlie horse in my leg, right? And I'm wearing these really short shorts and these really high stiletto heels. And so they're like, wait, are you okay? They're like, are you okay? And so I put let me just tell you for a second. I put my heel on the table, right? I'm gonna just move this camera for a second. So I put my heel on the table with my leg and I'm like, oh, my leg is just hurting. And I'm just like, have my really short shorts and really high heels on. And what I'm really doing is like improvising in the moment. I'm just showing up in the moment. And they just laughed and just got a sense of who I was. I didn't get all the lines right, but I did a great audition. And then afterward, Ryan Murphy's like, okay, Angelica, I just want to know about you. Tell me about you, and I told him a little bit about myself. And at the end of the audition, he was like, I just want you to know that I think you are a very talented actress. And I look forward, or I hope to work with you in the future. And I thought that was kind of just a nice kick in the booty out the door, you know, just a way for him to be nice and be like, okay, girl,
Oh.
keep it moving. But, and so I heard back from the network within 5 days that I did not get the role. And I just remember going back to my hotel and just crying. Like, I was so, but I cried in a way where I was letting it go. And I just remember just telling myself just to keep my energy the same, like just to have the same energy about me that's like never giving up, that even if it's not this, that it'll be something else. But I was just really confused because for me, spiritually speaking, when I'm chanting, when I'm doing a lot of things, I start getting signs and things start adding up. And I'm just like, this doesn't make sense. My spirituality was telling me, my practice was telling me this was supposed to be happening. And so it just didn't happen. And so I just, you know, kept chanting and, you know, kept about my practice. And then a month or two later, I get a call and from Pose to let me know that not only did I didn't get the role, but they specifically wrote a role after meeting me.
Wow.
So the role of Candy was actually written after they met me, and they wrote that role for me to play. So it's one of these things where that was for me a very clear example of how it doesn't always come in the ways that you think it's going to come. It doesn't always come on the time frame that you think it's going to come. But what is most important is that you keep a certain energy and attitude and vibrational frequency with your life. Because if you let that dip down, then you might start to knock away different opportunities because now you're in a different mindset. You know, I have friends that I know that if they had this practice, they would have been better off in the sense because their perspective was so off that they were in the realm of opportunity and folks wanted to give them. I could see from behind the scenes that folks wanted to give them an opportunity, but because their perspective and attitude wasn't in the right space, they just didn't want to create that space for them. So I know that from not only from doing that, but then even exactly what the district leader told me came to fruition when I come to season 2 and Candy's story arc comes to a very dangerous, end. And all of a sudden now the world is grieving a Black trans woman in a way that they never had before, in a way that got them to now be aware of the violence that happens against Black trans women. I may not have been nominated for an award for that performance, but the way that I know that the ripple effect, it's the same for me. It's the best thing I know. The best award that I could have is to know that I'm on track with my Buddha hood and showing that I'm using my light to illuminate a path for so many people through storytelling, the same ways in which, and it's so odd because the person who I am, Angelica Ross, like outside of acting, and the person that Candy Ferocity are two drastically different people. But to get them to see the humanity in this person with this foul mouth and this person who is quick to fight, but to see that she's fighting for her life and to see that she deserves respect and value too, in an industry that prior to, when you're looking at CSI Miami or anything, I mean, there's a documentary on called Disclosure on Netflix right now that would tell you about all of the terrible narratives that have been in the past that have gotten our society to think about trans people the way they think about them today, and even gotten trans people to internalize those perspectives. So I'm both on camera and off camera. I now have this experience that has been elevated to this place where I get to both illuminate the human condition of trans people, specifically Black trans people, both in my own sort of privileged state that is now, that I still even have challenges even in this state that I have now, as well as when I play characters that are dealing with much, much more difficult choices and challenges.
Wow. Yeah, absolutely. I think everything you're talking about feels like just the most beautiful explanation. And I feel yeah, pointing to the fact that you do have such an amazing impact on the world and so many people. What really informs that sense of purpose? Like what really drives that sense of purpose to, really open a pathway for the world to change?
At some point, I truly, truly, truly internalized um, the whole concept of being a votary of the Lotus Sutra. Of I so internalized everything. I mean, when I saw these black and white videos of Sunisaburo Makaguchi, like creating the Society for Value Creation, and the Soka Gakkai, and seeing, his focus on making sure that every child knows that they have value and knows that they're unique and all these things. And what drives me is knowing that so many children don't know that. So many children in America don't get to be affirmed in knowing that they are unique and special, no matter what ability or lack thereof that seems to be to the outside world, disabilities, whatever challenges that people are born with. It breaks my heart that the education system has failed us, and to hear someone like Sunisaburo Makaguchi talk about education in such a way that he's founded like the Soka University, or to like really be invested in making sure people have this fundamental education about themselves. I know from experience what it's like to not know, and to be on the verge of begrudging my life so much that I'm willing to take it, that I'm at the point of taking my life, or either behaving in such a way that's so reckless because I'm in a state where I just don't value my life. I don't see it. I know what that poison can do. So for me, it is of utmost importance for me to refute erroneous teachings. When you give someone an error and they start to ingest and internalize that error, it can spread throughout the body like cancer in a way that really kills your spirit before it even gets a chance to fully blossom. And that, to me, is one of the biggest tragedies that someone can experience, because it takes so much. I know it takes so much to overcome that. And not that you can't, but it's just that folks look to therapy, folks look to drugs, to sex, to distraction, to all kind of different things, in order to sort of like numb that pain of feeling misplaced within your own narrative, within your own story, not knowing your own power and all these different things. And so it's just such an amazing place to be at when you finally start to see how the universe and everything is here working in your favor. Everything, even the things that we call bad. I have these moments where I've had bad moments that I've learned as someone who uses the practice of Buddhism to continually elevate my vibrational frequency, that can dip anytime during the day, especially during Trump's administration. But what I've learned is how to experience pain in a way that does not completely engulf me, that does not drag my vibrational frequency all the way down to the lowest place of hell. But that while we're all experiencing all of this chaos, that no, I won't ignore it, but that I can feel it with you too. I can feel this pain with you too, and help us create the very solutions, the very medicine that we need as a society, as individuals, to individually heal and to bring healing into the collective, so that we understand that no human being should ever have to go through these through these very oppressive states. But it's also something that this Buddhist practice can teach you how to become free now, regardless of whatever the limiting policies there are, that you can, even if you are in prison right now, it's the type of practice that can make you understand how to be free in even what seems to be the most limiting circumstances. And then over time, you will be able to, you'll see the change of how you rise up out of those circumstances. But it's something that gives you the right perspective to understand that just because you become a Buddhist, or just because you have a great, like I just had a benefit, something that happens, it doesn't mean that life from now on is going to be all roses. It just means that you now have a tool to give you the right mindset, the right perspective, to stay centered and stay focused when the winds start to blow and when things get really, really rocky. You can be that kind of strong, courageous presence, not only for yourself, but for the people watching and for the people looking, needing someone to look to in this very confusing time, someone that is a pillar of strength. There's a pillar of wisdom, of focus, of humanity, when it seems like our humanity is on life support right now.
Wow, I think this is the most profound IG live happening right now on all of Instagram. Thank you so much. You know, and I think Buddhability is exactly what you're describing as this ability to really see the true nature of your life, that you have the ability to transform anything, and not only for yourself, but for others. So that's exactly what, you know, we're trying to do. And actually, you know, for anyone who's joining, I know we would love for this to go on for hours and hours, but time is limited. But Angelica, I just wanted to really thank you again so much for taking time out and sharing about your life and Buddhism and everything. And for anyone who joined, you can check out our new website, buddhability.org. We have a weekly podcast newsletter. You can also follow us on Instagram to check out this space and stay tuned. But just before we leave, I do want to plug in that Angelica will be featured on our podcast next Thursday with even more amazing experiences. So, Angelica, thank you so much again.
Yeah, and I just want to say to the folks listening, you know, and once you follow the Buddhability channel and just all these different things, one of my favorite things about Buddhism is that you can feel free to go down the rabbit hole of like reading the Lotus Sutra. And we got volume 1 and volume 2 of the writings of Nichiren Daishonin, all which are available for you to read for free at nichirenlibrary.org. And that's all great. And it's some amazing, I mean, the parable of the medicinal herbs, like, is one of my favorite stories, because it's just so brilliantly talks about how each of us have a different capacity to hear and to take things in. And that's why this wonderful teaching has so many different ways to reach people who have those different capacities. So when you come across a little Buddhist saying that you see somewhere, never give up, or, you know, just all these different little things, just holding on to one of them. Just one that you say to yourself all the time is enough. Like that, and one will change your life, let alone if you really try to get more and more into the practice. So just know that you don't have to feel like you've got to take everything in at once, or you got to know everything at once. When I started practicing, I didn't even know what Nam-myoho-renge-kyo meant. But now I know it to loosely, translate to that I'm devoting myself to that essence, whatever you call it, the universe, light and sound, all these things. But I'm devoting myself to aligning with that, to move through me in such a way that I'm on purpose, that I'm not just living life haphazardly, but that I'm here recognizing that I am uniquely made to express and to blossom, just like these flowers behind me that are blossoming. Like I'm too meant to blossom and bring my very unique fragrance to the world. So all you have to focus on is being more of yourself and finding those little pieces that help affirm who you are.
Yes. I think that is the most beautiful way to bring it all. Thank you so much, Angelica.
Thank you.
And thank you everyone so much for joining. Stay tuned for more. Thank you so much.